Hi, and welcome to More Human, More Resources, the HR podcast for entrepreneurs. I'm Vicki Brown, your host and CEO of Vidamaneo Enterprises. As a serial entrepreneur, I understand that having the right expert help has been critical to my success. That's why I'm dedicated to telling you, in plain language, what's going on in the world of HR that might impact your business and what you need to do about it, with real actionable tips to help you master that list of must-dos and grow your leadership muscle. First things first, the information contained in this podcast is provided for general purposes only and is not to be considered legal advice. Your decision to adopt or not adopt any practice or procedure mentioned in this podcast is solely yours, and we bear no responsibility for the outcome. We urge you to always consult legal counsel and other appropriate licensed professionals. And with that, let's get into the show. You're listening to Season 5, Episode 7. You know what keeps coming up in my conversations with business owners? The challenge of conducting effective job interviews. And honestly, I get it. When you're wearing multiple hats in your business, the idea of adding professional interviewer to your repertoire might feel overwhelming. But here's the thing. Getting this right is crucial because your business is only as strong as the team you build. So today we're diving into the do's and don'ts of conducting job interviews. And I promise you, by the end of this episode, you'll feel much more confident about your next hiring conversation. Let's start with something that might seem obvious but is often overlooked: preparation. Before you even think about scheduling interviews, you need a detailed job description that clearly outlines the skills, experience, and attributes that are needed for the role. And don't just throw together a quick list of responsibilities. Take time to think through what success looks like, what skills are absolutely necessary on day one, and what could be learned on the job. What traits would help someone thrive in your company culture? Now, once you have that clarity, turn it into your interview blueprint. This isn't just about having a document to post online. It's actually your roadmap for the entire interview process. Create specific questions that are going to help you evaluate each of the key requirements that you've identified. Write them down. Make sure you're asking all the candidates the same core questions. A structured approach not only helps you make better comparisons between candidates, it also keeps you from falling into the trap of making decisions based on gut feel or first impressions. Now, remember, when you're in the interview, your primary job is to listen. I know there's a temptation to sell your company or fill every silence, but remember, you learn so much more when you let candidates do the talking. Here's what sometimes happens. A candidate starts answering a question. There's a brief pause, and the interviewer jumps in to either redirect or move on. But those moments of silence, that's often when candidates share their most authentic responses. So give them space to think and elaborate. Sometimes the most revealing information comes after that initial rehearsed answer. And speaking of talking, the questions you ask really matter. And I'm not just talking about the words you choose. It's also about how you structure your questions and when you ask them. Think of your questions as tools to uncover not just what a candidate has done, but how they think and approach challenges. Your goal is to create a conversation that flows naturally while still getting the specific information that you need. Here's what works. Behavioral questions that require specific examples. So instead of asking general questions about how someone might handle a situation, ask them to describe a time they actually dealt with it. For instance, tell me about a time when you had to handle a project with limited information. What steps did you take? These questions can reveal so much more than hypothetical scenarios. You want to understand how candidates handle pressure and setbacks because, let's face it, every role has its challenges. Ask about times they faced obstacles or had to adapt to unexpected changes. Their responses will tell you volumes about their resilience and problem-solving abilities. And while technical skills are important, don't underestimate the value of interpersonal skills. How do they handle difficult relationships? How do they consider the impact of their actions on others? These are the qualities that can determine if someone will truly succeed on your team. Now, let's talk about what not to do, because these mistakes can not only cost you great candidates, but potentially create legal issues for you and your business. First and foremost, avoid any questions about protected characteristics. Now, this means steering clear of anything related to age, marital status, children, or other personal demographics. And yes, even casual conversation about these topics during interviews can be problematic. You might think you're just having a friendly conversation when you mention your own kids and ask if they have any, or comment on how young they look for someone with their experience. But these seemingly innocent comments can be interpreted as screening candidates based on protected characteristics, and that can get you into hot water very fast. When you catch yourself wanting to engage in that kind of small talk, redirect the conversation back to job-related topics. Focus on things that actually matter to the role, their experience, their skills, their approach to problem solving. And here's a pro tip. If a candidate volunteers personal information about any protected characteristic, acknowledge it briefly and move on. Don't pursue the line of conversation, even if they brought it up first. Remember, everything you discuss in an interview should connect directly back to the candidate's ability to perform the job. That's your North Star for keeping interviews both professional and legally compliant. Also keep in mind that in many places, it's actually illegal to ask about previous salary history. Instead, focus on understanding the value the candidate can bring to your organization and be upfront about your salary range. And again, in some places, that might actually be a requirement. So double check the pay transparency laws in your area. So what about vague questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, they don't tell you much about the candidate's ability to do the job. So instead, focus on specific skills and experiences that align with what you need. And please, don't rely on resumes. Have candidates complete a job application. Why? Because a job application is a legal document, and a resume isn't. And an application often includes important declarations about the accuracy of the information provided, meaning they have to sign off on what it says. And here's another point that I sometimes get pushback on. Be cautious with testing. If you're using any kind of pre-employment tests, make sure they're properly validated and that they don't discriminate against specific groups. This includes personality assessments and skills tests, and especially AI. All right, you're interviewing the candidate and they look and sound like a perfect fit. You're overjoyed and you say something like, I just know you're going to be successful here. Full stop. Don't make promises during interviews. While it's fine to discuss growth opportunities, absolutely avoid making specific guarantees about job security or future promotions. You may end up accidentally creating an implied contract, and that can cause you all sorts of problems down the line. And finally, don't rush. I know you're busy, and you might be eager to fill that position, but taking shortcuts in the interview process almost always leads to problems later. Take the time to thoroughly evaluate each candidate and follow a consistent process for everybody. Remember, the goal isn't just to fill a position. It's to find someone who will contribute to your team's success. When you approach interviews with this mindset, focusing on gathering meaningful information and staying inside the legal boundaries, well, you're much more likely to make great hiring decisions. The right hire can transform your business, but the wrong one can create countless headaches. If you found this information helpful, please leave a review and tell a friend. Thanks for spending the time. Until next week, same time, same place.